Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to another episode of my F1 22 My Team Career Mode. This is episode number 78 today for the Imola GP in Season 5. If you guys did miss the previous episode at the Italian Grand Prix for Monza, back-to-back Italian GPs we've got in this season, then be sure to check that one out before you see this one. A really intense ending and fantastic battle with Scuderia Ferrari's Max Verstappen right down to the wire. On the final lap, we are both battling it out for the race win. Meanwhile, in the background of that race, a traffic jam at turn 1 that caused a disqualification. So it really did all kick off, but that was such a satisfying race victory at the Italian GP, and we emulated what we did in Season 4, a DNF at Spa, the win at Monza, and now we're going to see what we can do at Imola. I hope we don't emulate Season 4 in a similar way at Imola, because of course last season we ended Imola with an engine failure in the full race. So I'm hoping we can carve out a different story of how this Imola GP goes, and of course we've also got the sprint race beforehand on the Saturday with qualifying on the Friday. On the R&D chart, well, it's kind of now samey with everyone plateauing at maxed out cars, saving R&D for maybe potentially an impending regulation change. There is some slight movement and slight upgrading again for Williams and also Aston Martin. A very subtle small upgrade for Porsche Williams, but a bit of a larger one for Aston Martin. That gets them ahead of Andretti and Renault now in the R&D chart. So could this be the place where Aston Martin finally break the duck and score some points potentially this season for the first time with either Stroll or Nico Hülkenberg? We're going to have to find out on the Saturday and Sunday, but first and foremost, it's Friday qualifying. And off the back of that brilliant win in Monza, we've got to be confident. You know, we've taken the points tally now 11 points ahead of Felipe Drugovich, so we've got half the gap that we had before going into Spa. So we're going to try our best to try and maybe claw back a lead like that. In terms of how this car should do and how we should do around Imola, well, you know, it remains to be seen. It is a very different circuit to Monza. You do need good straight line speed, but there's so many more challenging corners around here. But for this season, brand new, we've got some extra DRS zones now available around Imola. So that's going to impact potentially the level of racing we have, because sometimes Imola, even in the game as it is in real life, it can be very difficult to overtake and you get stuck in trains. So now with 2 extra DRS zones, potentially we could have some more action on the Saturday and Sunday. But here on Friday, we're just getting through this session, and you can see the entire grid now is so close together. Around Imola, we're only, spread by less than 8 tenths from P1 down to P22, so there's going to be disappointment for sure. Already is in the case of Nico Hülkenberg and the Aston Martin, where Stroll makes it through into Q2. Both Porsche Williams are through, and disappointment for Albon in the Red Bull and Schumacher in the Ferrari, and I'm sure there's going to be some other big names that'll be disappointed at the end of this session in Q2. We're not going to be one of them though. We get through, and we're quite equally matched actually by Sonoda, which is promising because he's had 3 DNFs in a row, or 2 DNFs in the disqualification, so he really needs a good race weekend to bounce back just before the mid portion of this season. But the other Red Bull of Lando Norris is knocked out, and unfortunately both Porsche Williams just can't quite make it through. But to say they're P11 and 12, quite an improvement. Stroll P14, you know, those 3 drivers along with Hülkenberg, they've really not featured much in this second part of qualifying into the third as well. So yeah, that's got to be quite promising for all of them in terms of that improvement basically. But it's kind of the usual suspects of the Repsol Haas of Drugovich that makes it through into the top 10 shootout. Both Mercedes, just about both Audi sport cars, along with the Ferrari of Verstappen alongside Bottas and the other Haas. So it's going to be quite close though, because the top 3 there were separated by just a few thousandths of a second. So pole position and all these positions in the top 10 for Saturday's sprint are going to be closely contested. And the problem with having a whole grid of near enough maxed out cars is you can feel like you're on a good lap, but it might not actually be as good as you think, because every car now, surely for every driver, is going to feel so great out there, like it's on rails, for us, though, we do have genuine pace there to be second place at the moment. Sebastian Vettel, though, on provisional pole position. I spoke about in the previous 2-3 episodes that Vettel seemed a bit slow ever since that race win in the opening round, but is he refining the form? Well, on our second flying lap, we're down to P5 now as the laps come in. It's a marginal improvement for us that will get us back onto at least the second row of the grid alongside Vettel, but it's all Haas once again on the front row. So they've carried over that pace from Monza, even with a difficult, different challenge that Imola is compared to Monza. They're still bloody quick, and of course, this was a place where they dominated last season, actually, if you remember. So Drugovich and Bottas will be feeling pretty confident going to Saturday's sprint. I'm really happy, though, with second row alongside Vettel, ahead of Leclerc. Tsunoda's done well, though, as well, to be ahead of Verstappen, one of the stars of the Italian GP. So clearly Ferrari maybe not as quick in the corners around Imola as they were in the Temple of Speed and Monza. And Carlos Sainz, well, he just has a shocker. Don't know what happened with him, but he's down in P10. But obviously plenty of time to make up for things on Saturday for this sprint race first of all.
So it's all about speed in today's sprint, not very many laps and no chance to get ahead on strategy. Who here today has the raw skill to take them to the top?
Slightly overcast conditions for Saturday's sprint, but I think the rain is going to be staying away for the whole race weekend. There was maybe a forecast for rain for tomorrow's race, so we'll see about that. But today, there is no rain. It's all medium tyres for the entire grid, and we've got 11 laps of quick racing up ahead on the second row, staring at two Repsol Haas cars who are very quick around Italy. Bottas got a bit unlucky. Drugovich had a few problems with his brake pedal, locking up quite a fair few times. So let's see if that's going to hamper him today. And we've got maybe a quick Sebastian Vettel back here in third place alongside us. But from P4, there should be some solid points, maybe even a top 3 here, we're hoping, as we go to 5 red lights to the sprint race around Imola. Lights out and away we go. It's an okay enough start to get right underneath the gearbox of Sebastian Vettel, pulling to the left-hand side before trying to maybe make a move on the right, but instead getting scared off the racing line a little bit, I must say, because Vettel really just moved so aggressively. I wasn't sure where on earth he was going to start braking there, but it's fine. We've managed to stay at least in P4, which is not a disaster, also not an amazing getaway and turn 1 for us, but, nonetheless, at least we're not lost any positions, and we're still now right up behind the rear wing of the Audi Sport, but Drugovich remains in P1 from P1 on Friday's qualifying. Meanwhile, Max Verstappen with a dive on the inside, trying to get Leclerc and annoy him to no end. Leclerc, the Mercedes that really should be hoping he's further ahead where George Russell is, but no, Leclerc, ever since Austria, really hasn't been catching a break and hasn't been in a groove the same way that Russell has, and being that lead Mercedes, the one who's nearer to a championship fight. Speaking of, though, for ourselves in a championship fight, we need to try and catch up to Felipe Drugovich to limit the damage here in the Saturday sprint, looking to overtake Sebastian Vettel, but playing it cautious because, we have an 11-point cushion, so there's no point trying to dive down when we don't need to. We've still got plenty of laps in this sprint to make a move later on, so just playing the long game a little bit with Sebastian Vettel. I mean, I know myself and him would have had some fair racing anyway, even if I tried to go down the inside there, but we're going to play it safe rather than sorry, because we can, because I think we're driving well enough. We've got that point advantage, so let's play this smart and patient and wait for the right opportunities. Verstappen's off wide. He did so well in the opening 2 laps, and he's slow. Oh, Max Verstappen, he's gone from the high at Monza to an absolute low of another DNF for him this season, and Ferrari will be kicking themselves. They lost the win at the Italian GP, and now their star man is out for the first race here at Imola, and that's going to be a very tall order then on Sunday, remember, to close back up and go from the back of the grid. Meanwhile, back to our POV, still very much in this race, on to lap 4, and this is our moment to power past Sebastian Vettel. He's got no DRS off the cars ahead because the Haas cars are waltzing off in the distance, and so he's a sitting duck with plenty of battery use and DRS available to us as we now watch Tsunoda up in P5, locking up, and Leclerc Imola makes a wonderful move round the outside of the chicane. Very unorthodox place to make a pass. Then has DRS, that extra zone there to pull away and get into the top 5. Tsunoda, though, still pretty good for him to be in the top 6, but I was hoping for a bit more there in terms of a defense versus someone who's chasing us down the championship, or trying to, I should say, as we look to, speaking of chasing down, look to close up to the Haas cars. But you saw there Bottas in the distance moving around, trying to maybe hustle and harry Drugovich, and he's looking to make a move for P1, and that's basically invited us to close up to them within a couple of laps here now. Lap 7, we've dropped Sebastian Vettel, and we've got front row seats to Bottas trying his hardest, going from right to left, trying to figure out a way past Drugovich, but he is just standing firm. But we're now within DRS. Slight little twitch of oversteer there, just showing how unforgiving this circuit can really be if you have a lapse in judgment on the right throttle pedal. As we now close up again, Drugovich blocking Bottas into turn 2. Can we go and make the double pass? Drugovich locks up, he's off circuit. We've got across the curb as well, and we've broken a bit of our barge board and floor area, and all of a sudden Valtteri Bottas has powered through into the lead. Drugovich's error has cost him the lead, and also us as well with that damage, because we were just too busy focused on him, and we basically followed him onto that very curb there and the sleeping policeman. And now mid-corner we've had a snap of oversteer, and that's all just down to that damage, because it does affect the balance of the car mid-corner. And now all of a sudden Sebastian Vettel is back in the fight. He's up to P3, and on the second last lap of this sprint he's now closing up to Drugovich. Bottas now looks to be fine for this sprint race win as Vettel gets the elbows out. Drugovich fights back as best he can, but he's going to get squeezed out. Now can we get through on the inside? Well, we're going to be cautious into the left-hander, because I just don't know how late I can brake there with the floor damage we've got. We've gone from right to left, left to right. We're just all over the shop trying to overtake Drugovich, but he's just staying firm, and that is quite frustrating, because all the way now until the end of this second last lap onto the last one, he remains ahead. And then look at that acceleration. That is insane. I don't know whether that's a little bit with my barge board being broken, or the side pod area, maybe that's affecting the drag, because again, look at that acceleration off that chicane on the last corner. Just ridiculous. So tomorrow's race may be difficult versus the Repsol Haas cars if they're going to have that same acceleration. And frustratingly, we're literally pushing Drugovich through the final corner, but we just can't do anything to get P3, and we have to settle for P4, the exact same place where we started this sprint race. Bottas won it though, a little bit controversial, because you think, you know, Bottas, he's hardly got any points to his name this season. Drugovich the one in a championship fight trying to close up to us, and clearly no team orders there, because Bottas takes all the plaudits for himself today on Saturday with the sprint win. Sebastian Vettel, cheeky as ever, just, you know, is opportunistic to get the P2, whilst myself and Drugovich are too busy fighting each other. And well, for us, you know, Drugovich closes up a tiny bit, you know, 1 point there, but it's only 1 point. But you know, just frustrating, you know, to have that damage. But tomorrow's a new day, Sunday's Grand Prix, more fuel, tyre wear, strategy, could be a different ball game. Let's go to Sunday.
Welcome once again to the Autodromo Internazionale Enzo e Dino Ferrari. The clue's in the name. This is very much Ferrari home turf, and the locals will be out in force today to support their team in what we hope will be a magnificent spectacle of motorsport. On then to the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. 1 lap of Imola, anti-clockwise of course, unlike most Formula 1 circuits, will take our drivers round 3.1 miles of track. 19 turns, 9 right-handers and 10 to the left. Drivers will need to be precise at the hairpin at turn 7, given the subsequent uphill section. Without a good exit from that corner, they'll lose a lot of time on that stretch. It's time to take a look at our starting grid for today's race. Valtteri Bottas lines up on pole position, with Sebastian Vettel starting alongside. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Drugovich, the owner driver, Charles Leclerc and Magnussen, Tsunoda, Gasly, Sainz and Oscar Piastri, Norris, Mick Schumacher, Lance Stroll and Fernando Alonso, Hülkenberg, Albon, Sergio Perez and Daniel Ricciardo, Ocon, Liam Lawson, Verstappen, and George Russell ends our grid lineup. Now it's almost time for lights out, so let's go down to the track. And alongside me once again for coverage of today's race is none other than the great Anthony Davidson. Now, can I get your take on Max Verstappen? That was a great podium in the last race. Can they keep that momentum going this weekend?
It's always nice to come into a Grand Prix weekend on a high, but your expectations are based much more on your practice and qualifying runs. So it's the momentum from those sessions that they'll be hoping to carry into the race today.
So hoping for a bit more race pace today on Sunday's full Grand Prix and hoping for a bit more pace versus the Repsol Haas cars. You know, don't know what Sebastian Vettel's got in the tank for this full one, but he's a lot higher than he has been in recent races. Did so well yesterday on Saturday, as well as, must be mentioned, Kevin Magnussen there in P6 in the Porsche Williams. I don't know how he did. We missed kind of how he got there, but he made a couple of overtakes and he sits just behind the Mercedes of Leclerc. So he must be flying on a high and hoping he can convert that to something today in the full Grand Prix. But you'll see that Drugovich is one of the few cars that has chosen the medium compound tyre. The rest of us on softs. Now, I don't know what the strategy may possibly be, because the engineer strategy at the start of the race, going to the formation lap, was suggesting a 2-stop from soft, medium to hards. But because everyone bar Drugovich pretty much has chosen mediums, maybe, you know, one or two others, I'm suspecting that there might be a 1-stop on the cards, even with this soft compound tyre, because of the upgraded tyre, where Imola, not really too abrasive, especially now with the upgrades everyone's got on their cars. So let's see, but for sure that will give us an advantage over our nearest rival in the championship. So first things first in this opening lap, just looking to hopefully get ahead of Drugovich, and then we'll see what we can do in terms of the pace versus Vettel and Valtteri Bottas. But knowing we've got a margin to Drugovich in the championship, we're going to just try and keep this as clean as possible on lap 1 and then go from there as we go to 5 red lights to the full Imola GP. And it's a pretty good launch for us. Drugovich not so much, but then we're met with a bit of wheel spin in the 4th gear. Magnussen all over the back of us, as well as Leclerc into turn 2. Vettel trying to hustle and harry Bottas, and we somehow managed to slip it down the inside of Drugovich. The soft compound helping us out quite a fair bit, I think you got to say there, to get the traction mid-corner, and we're up into P3. Didn't think we were going to do that, but we managed to pull it off, as there's now so many side-by-sides going on, as Magnussen in the Porsche Williams is having a go at Leclerc. Tsunoda close behind, fighting going on between Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris down below, just on the cusp of P10, and Magnussen has done it. Magnussen up into P5 in the Porsche Williams. Stonking effort on lap 1. Let's see if he's got the race pace to continue. He's driving in the form of his life. His teammate Ocon is down in last place, so this is really a lot more of Magnussen doing the work rather than the car itself, and that's the beauty of near-out maxed out cars for all the AI teams. The driver can make a huge difference, and Magnussen, flying on a high from Saturday, continues to soar here on Sunday. But Bottas at the forefront in P1, but Sebastian Vettel right underneath his rear wing as they barrel down towards turn 2. Vettel on the inside, no DRS needed. Vettel gets the elbows out just like he did on Saturday versus Drugovich, and it's a copycat move for Vettel, and this time we're going to learn from our mistake on Saturday and go to the right hand side to try and finish the move off on Bottas. We even had a look around the outside of Sebastian Vettel, but thankfully we didn't actually commit to that, and it was quite a sketchy moment being right up on his rear right tyre. But we finished off the move in P2, so pretty much did some learning from Saturday's sprint, pull the car across to block off Bottas, and now he's susceptible to his teammate Drugovich. They're side by side as they go down the hill and then climb back up. Drugovich got ahead on the mediums, but everyone behind him pretty much is on soft tyres, so there's got to be a point where they try and overtake. Bottas trying it immediately on lap 3. Doesn't work out. The Brazilian stays ahead, and McLaren wide into that same corner. It's 3 wide, and absolute chaos behind in the mid-pack, and there's so much damage for so many different cars. Mick Schumacher going slow as a snail there. 2 Aston Martins up in P11 and 12 all of a sudden. Let's have a look at the replay and see what happened there. So it began with a fight between Oscar Piastri, I think that is, and Lando Norris, and then Schumacher gets involved. McLaren, Red Bull, Ferrari, 3 wide into turn 2, and that was never going to work. The Ferrari makes 2 different points of contact. Piastri is pushed off into the gravel trap, and so that is a calamity for Schumacher, Piastri, and others, as others got damage from that, including the Red Bull of Lando Norris. 3 wide, you just know you need to back out of that. Someone needs to, because it's always going to end off like that, basically. But going back to the sharp end of this race, much calmer things happening on the POV of my car as we're closing and sailing past Sebastian Vettel. I hope the tyre on the grass. Vettel gave us a good squeeze. He's still there on the outside, but we hold the racing line and get up into P1 of the Grand Prix. And because of all the fighting going on between Drugovich and Valtteri Bottas, we've got 5 seconds behind us. So this race right now for the lead is all myself and Sebastian Vettel as we go defensive, seeing the need to block off the inside line. Vettel all over the back of us, and this extra DRS zone is going to help him close up down the hill into the last 2 turns. We give him a squeeze, but he's going to remain through, and instead we brake early and try for this switchback from right to left, get it down the inside of the final corner. It is like old times, really. Myself versus Vettel for the 5 billionth time, it feels, in this series, and it's an epic fight as we switch from left to right with DRS close to the wall, and it's hard but very fair racing for myself and Sebastian Vettel for good old time's sake. But Lando Norris feels even more pain in this Grand Prix. Already had to make an extra pit stop because of damage with that 3 wide moment, and now his Honda engine fails him once again for I think the 4th time this season. Lando Norris retires with an engine failure, so very much I think Lando has my luck from last season, thankfully. But what is familiar territory is this battle between myself and Vettel. We're going to make a mistake, though, on lap 7, as maybe the tyre wear starts to creep in on these softs. The rear end stepped out just after the chicane. I mean, that corner is so tricky because those massive curbs, they just want to unsettle the car. Easy to even break a bit of the car. Thankfully, no damage whatsoever. More just, I think, it's just a pure oversteer on the exit. But we're going to come back at Vettel, as like on Saturday, pre the damage we got in that sprint round, we have genuine good pace here. And myself and Vettel are just swapping positions. If one makes an overtake, the other one's going to have an opportunity to try and repass, just like you're about to see here on lap 9, as we're the one ahead without DRS. Vettel's rear wing opens up and the Audi car comes through on the left-hand side and he's going to sail past, but can we try and pressurize him into a mistake around the outside? Vettel goes a bit too deep and we now undercut him on the racing line to get back into P1. I think it's safe to say now, I think we've got the measure of Sebastian Vettel. There was a time where I really thought I cannot beat this man, but now, you know, this season, the end of last season, I had that confidence of, no, you know what, we can take the fight to Sebastian Vettel, the 6-time reigning world champion. I think we're faster than him now these days, and we can take the fight to him. And, you know, last season, if it wasn't for the engine failures, I think we very much would have fully taken the fight and beaten him in the championship if it wasn't for that. So, yeah, these days, very much not afraid to go toe-to-toe with him. And meanwhile, down below in the lower positions, just outside the top 10, Max Verstappen trying to recover in this race, but you saw there an uncharacteristic lock-up from the Dutchman, sees him back in an Aston Martin sandwich with Lance Stroll flying high in points-paying positions for Aston Martin right now. Drugovich still ahead of Valtteri Bottas, and Magnussen still ahead of Leclerc. Lap 11, the rear end is twitching to no end as the tyre wear is causing us major issues and causing us to lock up. We have to go across the grass cut the corner and let Vettel back through, because the only way I kept that position was by cutting that corner. So Vettel rightfully goes into P1, and you can see on the bottom right, the icon is brick orange. So the tyres are starting to feel it. But the thing is, Vettel must be feeling the same, as well as Bottas, Magnussen, everyone, the soft comp banner tyre. So this is a weird, confusing part of the race. I don't know whether we're trying to go long for a one-stop. I'm going to be stubborn and try and stick with Vettel as best I can. And to be honest, we can do, even despite the mistakes. Vettel is making just as many mistakes as we once again dummy him with the move on the right to the inside, and we get back through into P1, and then we will pit along with him and Leclerc on lap 13 as Drugovich goes up into P1 on the medium comp banner tyre. We strap on a set of mediums, as does Leclerc, who's now jumped Vettel in the pit stop. So good stop there for Mercedes to get ahead of Audi, but all of us have put on the medium tyres, and my engineer said this was a one-stop strategy. So we're going to try, apparently, and pull off a one-stop soft to mediums. I don't know how it's going to go, because Drugovich, I assume, is trying a one-stop, and he chose mediums to go to hard. So he must know something that we don't. I don't know. But as we exit the pit lane, we see the Porsche Williams comes out behind me, because Magnussen pit the lap before and got a fantastic undercut. So he stayed ahead of Leclerc, but he's now got Vettel behind him as well. So Vettel's actually the biggest loser in all of this, basically, because he lost the position to Leclerc, and Kevin Magnussen is only now one position ahead of Bottas. Sainz also then 2 cars back. Tsunoda and Gasly round at the top 10. Verstappen has got back ahead of the 2 Aston Martin cars now in P11 as he continues his recovery. But Magnussen, P4 in a Williams, doing amazingly. But Leclerc is going to have something to say about that as he goes for the move. And so now, finally, are these cars going to be able to have a go at Magnussen and actually finally break that defence from the Dane? Leclerc, side by side, Magnussen keeps the foot in on the outside, but Leclerc has just got a bit too much grip there and is up into P4. Vettel down the inside now, side by side for him and also Carlos Sainz having a go at Valtteri Bottas. Also behind, you've got Tsunoda versus Gasly. It's all kicking off, and you know what? This extra DRS zone up this hill as well, the second extra one, is really helping the racing, because Vettel is able to shoot one down the inside just as they go up over the crest and get into P5. So Magnussen, short-lived P4 down to P6, but still bloody amazing effort from him to be just even racing those cars. But back to our POV and our race at hand. We're P3 at the moment, but Ocon is in the pit lane and Drugovich is in, the 2 drivers that chose the mediums at the start of this race, and we're going to just get ahead of Drugovich to get into P1 of this Grand Prix once again. But you can see advantage Drugovich in terms of going on the mediums has allowed him to re-jump all those cars he lost positions to, and he now finds himself in P2 ahead of Leclerc, Vettel, and now maybe has a chance to have a go at us. I don't know. He's on the hard compound. We're on mediums. Potentially going to the end, I don't know. A lot of people might be going to the end on these mediums, but I just don't know what the tyre wear levels are going to be saying. Meanwhile, Verstappen there fighting Stroll without a front wing, and it's because of this. Verstappen, just before we cut on to that action, actually made contact with Gasly. So Verstappen himself has damage fighting Gasly, and then he's going to understeer and then cause Stroll some pain there with front wing damage. So a bit of a shame for the Canadian to be a bit of a victim there of Verstappen's aggressive driving on Gasly, as we now watch Leclerc overtake Drugovich though. So that's maybe not in the game plan for the Brazilian. Leclerc up into P2. The hard tyres, they may be durable, but they're not a great race tyre around here. And Leclerc is now looking to try and defend. Drugovich comes back at him, but surely Leclerc at this stage of the race, lap 19, still has plenty of grip out there and stays ahead in P2. And all that fighting is going to slow them both down. And look at the top left, we've already gained an extra second. The gap is now 2.3, and everyone's closing up behind these two, having a ding-dong scrap. And by lap 25, 6 laps later, the gap behind to Leclerc has grown to 6.7. That is how much Leclerc and Drugovich have been fighting. They've just been constantly swapping position into turn 2 and losing each other time going side by side in sector 1, and so we're just gaining and gaining because of that, and we're just waltzing off into the distance. This could turn out to be one of the most dominant displays for myself for a race win here, because at the moment I'm not seeing how any of these guys are catching me, because once again they slow each other up. Bottas now locks up and goes wide at turn 1 and will lose out, and that's going to be the gain for the drivers like Hulkenberg. Hulk up into P9 now in the Aston Martin. Wonderful stuff for him. Gasly, Tsunoda, Sainz, Magnussen. You've got side by side still for Leclerc and Drugovich now going into sector 2. So look how much they're losing to me. It's now 8 seconds to 8.4 seconds to me, as these two just can't get rid of each other, and it's almost like they're squabbling for pride of who gets a chance to chase after me. But it's too late, guys. It's too late. You've lost all the time to me. Drugovich does get up into P2, but eventually lap 27 he finds himself back in P3. Shock horror, because they just can't get rid of each other. And now Sebastian Vettel is now speeding up, as on lap 28 there's no signs of these mediums wearing out too much. So Haas and Drugovich have miscalculated this. The one stop from mediums to hards is slower, and there's a one stop very much possible from soft to mediums, because none of us, I assure you, are thinking about pitting at this stage of the race. There's only a couple of laps left. Drugovich trying his hardest, but ultimately the hard tyres are just not as quick as those mediums. The Haas is quicker than the Mercedes probably, and Drugovich has been driving excellently, but the Mercedes is staying ahead. And now watch out for Sebastian Vettel from left to right. DRS open up the hill, and he's going to dance around the outside of the Brazilian, and all of a sudden Drugovich drops to P4. So this has been a disaster strategy for him and Haas, and now Vettel is going to try and do one better and dive down the inside of his old teammate from Ferrari and get up to P2. Elbows out. Leclerc still in P2 as they now come through the next couple of corners, but Vettel gets up into P2. Valiant effort from him, and he's going to remain in P2, and they're all going to keep on squabbling, and it's meant by lap 32, the last lap of this Grand Prix. To be honest, in a very nice way, it's been a very calm and mundane race for me, because they've allowed me to waltz away. We've not even been particularly quick in this Grand Prix, to be honest. I haven't had to be, because they've just been losing so much time to one another, fighting so much, and so we're going to come through for one of the most dominant displays I've ever had on this game. We're going to win this Grand Prix by 15 plus seconds, and it's back-to-back wins from Monza to Imola. We are the kings of Italy. Both Italian Grand Prix chalked up for P1. What a race for us. What a 2 races for us. And it's really now starting to feel like this might be our season. Finally, things are coming good, and they're clicking like ever.
And that's it then for the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. And what a sensational victory they've managed to pull off here. So, Anthony, what made the difference out there today? Well, I'm thoroughly exhausted after the excitement of that race, but I'm sure it's nothing compared to our drivers here. They've worked hard to make it up there, and it's great to see them make their way onto the podium now.
So nice bit of familiarity on this podium as well. Sebastian Vettel in second place. You know, not my teammate anymore, but we just can't get rid of each other. You know, a couple of races off from seeing each other on circuit, but now seeing each other side by side on the podium on that second step for him. Leclerc third gets the better of Drugovich today. Big shout-outs, though, to some of the drivers who are also in the top 10, because there were some excellent performances out there from Kevin Magnussen in the Porsche Williams. That gets 10 points on the board for the first time this season. Porsche Williams score some very good points today, and Aston Martin get on the board with Nico Hulkenberg. We now have a 24-point gap to Felipe Drugovich. We've now exceeded the gap we had going into Spa, so we've very much made up for that DNF at the Belgium Grand Prix. And like I said, it just feels like we're getting it together. We've got momentum, and nothing can stop us here, potentially. And in the Constructors, because Tsunoda actually scored some good points today, Russell scored 0, and obviously we beat Leclerc by a fair few. It means we've finally actually managed to close the gap to Mercedes. So even the Constructors, I don't think I have to worry about maybe Tsunoda as a teammate, because at this pace and these kind of races, we can do this. We can close that and still have a fight in the Constructors as well. But look at that. Porsche Williams now all of a sudden ahead of Renault in the Constructors Championship. Aston Martin get off the mark with 2 points, only 2 points behind Renault. So, you know, there are maybe better days on the horizon for Porsche Williams and Aston Martin as they start to see the benefit, as they start to see the fruits of their labour. And McLaren closing up to Ferrari in the championship. So just like in 2021, it's Ferrari versus McLaren for lower positions, as there is a new order, obviously, with Mercedes, Haas, Audi and ourselves, the top 4 teams clearly a step ahead of the rest of the pack. But what a last 2 episodes this has been. 2 Italian Grand Prix, 2 wins. Mamma mia. Beautiful stuff. Beautiful stuff. Guys, if you have enjoyed this one, hit the like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're new around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. I'll see you guys next time. Roll on the British GP. Goodbye.